Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the RotoBaller Radio Value in Sleeper Plays. The Value in Sleeper Plays for Week 4 of your fantasy football season. Let's get right to it here. We start at the quarterback position. Value in Sleeper Play, Matt Ryan of the Indianapolis Colts. A matchup rating at RotoBaller.com's premium matchup ratings of 108.2. And he goes up against the Tennessee Titans defense that is allowing 25.9 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks and has allowed through 3 games, Tennessee has already allowed 8 passing touchdowns. Now, Matt Ryan has had 2 games that were respectable. Decent game last week in the upset of the Kansas City Chiefs. Week 2 was terrible, but keep in mind that Week 2 game, he was without his number 1 wide receiver, Michael Pittman. On the season, Matt Ryan is completing 64% of his passes, 3 touchdowns on the year, and he's averaging just under 11 fantasy points per game in a 4-point per TD format. He's valued, his price on DraftKings this week is $5,600. So if you're in a situation where you're streaming quarterbacks, maybe the Trey Lance injury, the Dak Prescott injury, Dak not going to be back, it seems, for Week 4. And if you continue to stream QBs, you haven't found the permanent solution, Matt Ryan with a juicy matchup that maybe you take advantage of, that Tennessee defense giving up a ton of points to opposing QBs. At the running back position, 2 running backs to be considered some value plays here for Week 4. We'll start with Rashad Penny of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the downside to Penny, he's only averaging 10.7 rushing attempts per game. So round it, let's call it 11 carries per game. And he's only averaging 6 PPR points per game. However, to me, that's more of an issue of lack of work than lack of production. Because on those 11 carries or so per game, he is averaging 4.4 yards per carry, a respectable number. Anytime you're right around 4.5 yards per carry, let's just get some more work, some more volume Rashad Penny's way. Seattle has traditionally been a run-first offense. Chris Carson, the most recent benefactor of that style. With Geno Smith at quarterback, it doesn't make sense to throw the ball 40 times. You lean on that run game, especially this week in a matchup against the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions defense allows 30.9, let's call it 31, fantasy points per game in a PPR format to opposing running backs. The most points allowed to opposing running backs in the league through 3 games. They've allowed 6 rushing touchdowns through 3 games already this season. Quick math, that's 2 rushing touchdowns allowed per game by the Detroit Lion defense. In a PPR format, they also allow an average of 5 receptions per game. All of this, Rashad Penny has a RotoBaller premium matchup ranking of 105.2, yet a discounted price on DraftKings at $4,900. Rashad Penny is in lineups of mine, both DFS and season long, as I hope to try to take advantage of that Lions run defense. My second running back of note, Devin Singletary of the Buffalo Bills against the Baltimore Ravens. $5,900 on DraftKings, a matchup rating of 110.3. Now, PPR formats is where I look for Singletary. He's averaging 5.3 targets a game, 4.3 receptions per game, and just over 7 yards per reception. PPR formats, just over 12 points per game. This Ravens defense allows 27 points per game to opposing running backs, 5th most in the league, and in a PPR format, 8.3 receptions per game to those running backs. A PPR to death situation for Devin Singletary. At the wide receiver position, value in sleeper play number 1, Garrett Wilson of the Jets against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Matchup rating of 121.7. He gets Jets number 1 QB, Zach Wilson, back under center. He's averaging just under 11 targets a game and 6 receptions per game. Okay, about 17 PPR points per game, obviously skewed by that monster Week 2 performance for Garrett Wilson. Goes against the Pittsburgh defense that's allowing just under 41 points per game to opposing wide receivers in a PPR format. It's 7th most in the league including 4 wide receiver touchdowns. Garrett Wilson priced at $5,400 this week. My second wide receiver is Brandon Cooks of the Texans against the Los Angeles Chargers. On paper, it might sound like, or in your head, it might seem like a tough matchup, but the Chargers allow almost 42 points per game, PPR format, to opposing wide receivers, 6th most in the league. They've allowed 5 touchdowns to opposing wide receivers. And Brandon Cooks has a matchup rating on RotoBaller.com of 117.1. He's averaging over 12 yards per catch and just under 10 PPR points per game. And finally, at the tight end position, my value and sleeper play, Robert Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers. Matchup rating of 103.1 against the New England Patriots. He's bone cheap at DraftKings at $3,500. But keep in mind, New England Patriots are allowing over 18 PPR points to opposing tight ends, 4th most in the league. They've allowed 4 touchdowns to tight ends through 3 games, the most touchdowns allowed to opposing tight ends. On average, 5.5 receptions and 47 receiving yards per game allowed. So there's 10 fantasy points right there, and then the 4 touchdowns. Tonyan is averaging 6.5 PPR points per game and could see the end zone this week against New England. DraftKings, like I said, $3,500. So in summary, the sleeper and value plays for week 4 of your fantasy football season: Matt Ryan at quarterback, Rashad Penny and Devin Singletary at the running back position, wide receivers are Garrett Wilson and Brandon Cooks, tight end Robert Tonyan. Folks, don't forget to RotoBaller.com for all sorts of week 4 planning articles, including our Team Sync, lineup optimizers, and all sorts of great options. Follow me on Twitter at @Aniano Fantasy, and good luck in week 4, everybody.